One of the greatest of the megachurch pastors, on a previous book I wrote, he said, I'd like to endorse it because everywhere I go, Christians are discouraged. Well, you take the biblical idea, the end is not the end. There's two meanings of the word end in the Bible. An end can be an end as finis, the Latin word, period, full stop, conclusion. In other words, spring ends the summer, and after the summer, the fall, and then winter. The year ends. And the same with our lives. We're born, we grow, we decline, we die. There are endings in that first sense, always in the world, including history. The Roman Empire ended. America's greatness will end. But the end in that sense is not the end in the other sense, because the other biblical meaning of end is telos, the Greek word for culmination, climax, purpose, objective. And always when you have endings of the first sort, the Lord is working out his ends of the second sort powerfully. So Rome fell. Did the gospel fall? No. It went to Europe, won Europe, and a whole new stage of history. Or you could say, look at the Gospels. On Friday night after the cross, looked all over. That was the end as finis. But the real end as telos was the resurrection on Sunday, and that's always so. And we see in Scripture that evil, rather than being improved steadily like atheists think, evil will rise to a crescendo. But that's when God's great end as telos, the apocalypse, the unveiling of his purpose in history, will take place when the Messiah returns.
Os Guinness is joining us today here on the Meeting House on Faith Radio, the Getty Music Worship Conference in Nashville. Well, we were talking about this book that is called Carpe Diem, Redeemed, Seizing the Day, Discerning the Times. And as we conclude our conversation today, you mentioned this whole notion of discouragement, and you were talking about, for instance, what we commonly call Good Friday, the day of crucifixion. Resurrection came 3 days later. Rome fell. Empires have fallen throughout history, yet the gospel has continued to go on. So if we gain that sense of history and recognize that man's wisdom or man's constructs will fade away, we can still be encouraged. We can still be joyful in the Lord. I think about that scripture in 1 Peter, the grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of the Lord endures forever. In that we can have hope. In that we can have encouragement, can't we?
Exactly. And it was a time of discouragement like that St. Augustine wrote The City of God. In other words, the city of man, Babylon, Rome, Athens, Washington, D.C., London, Paris, they will all fall. But the city of God endures. And we're believers in the city of God. In other words, we're looking over the horizon of history, beyond history. And it says in Hebrews 11, the Lord has a city prepared for those who have a faith like that.
Well, as we conclude, you're going to be speaking at the Getty Music Worship Conference here in Nashville this week, encouraging people to really recapture a sense of the spark of evangelism, of sharing the gospel around the world. As people come together and worship, this is at its base, it is a worship-oriented conference. So how do you see that worship and experiencing God in worship can actually help fuel our sense of purpose?
Obviously, as followers of Jesus, readers of the Bible, we put a heavy premium on words. But while words are the language of the mind, music is the language of the heart and the soul. You can say incredible things in words, but only so much, whereas music is the ability to say the unsayable. And so when we worship God with everything that we are, we're going beyond just our minds, although we're using words, but through music, going up to the very highest, fullest, richest, deepest expression of who we believe with every pore in our bodies is the Lord whom we're worshiping.